Today in the pitch, we'll be talking about home solar financing. OneEthos is the fintech affiliate of Climate First Bank, a bank that bills itself as the world's first FDIC-insured digital community bank founded to combat the climate crisis. A pretty cool moniker. And today we'll be chatting with Chris Cucci, EVP at Climate First Bank and OneEthos, to discuss how they set their solar loan business apart for installers and homeowners with their 30-year fixed rate, no dealer fee, 100% financing loan program. Hey, Chris, thanks for taking the time.
Glad to be here.
So as I said, Climate First Bank is an FDIC-insured digital community bank, and you're also a B Corp, which strikes me as being, unusual in the banking space. So I think that's pretty cool. You launched a solar fintech company called OneEthos in 2022 with the goal of providing solar installers with the most competitive and ethical financing options in the industry. And we'll be getting into that. There's some cool stuff there. But before we get into the nuances of the offering, can you broadly explain, the mission statement, what makes a difference in how Climate First Bank does business compared to what's typical?
Climate First Bank was formed with environmental impact really as one of the cornerstones of our business plan. And we always tell people that's why we put it in our name. When we spun out OneEthos, which is also a certified B Corp, as our standalone fintech business line to support solar installers about a year later, we did this because we knew solar installers deserved the opportunity to work with a lender who had environmental finance in our DNA. This isn't a product line that we just decided to dabble in. It was one of the reasons we started this bank. We're not one of these solar lending platforms that just got acquired by a bank and then had to reinvent ourselves within that context, but we were built from that. We were birthed from the bank and totally focused on financing solar across the country.
At Solar Builder, we've been talking a lot about home solar financing, the environment for the last 12 to 18 months, how higher interest rates started to shift the market back to leases over loans. My question for you is first, since your founding in 2021, is that something you've seen?
For us at our bank and at OneEthos, we really, as we look at our loan application volume on consumer solar, we didn't really start seeing a lot of that impact in rate hikes until later in 2023, continuing definitely into probably the first half of 2024. Since then, we have started to see demand rise again, which is a good thing. We've also seen recently rates start to fall again. Fingers crossed that keeps happening, because I think that will, start to contribute to a little bit of a turn and hopefully more of a direction back towards loans as the financing vehicle of choice.
Is it really that simple too, and kind of like out of your control to a certain degree? Like what that sets kind of dictates, how much business is kind of coming in your door in terms of solar customers?
Yeah, this is the classic banker answer, but it's a maybe. So, and the reason I say that, it's yes and no. We can't control the markets. We can't control what happens with interest rates, but what we can control is our product and the loan terms that we offer. It was about a little less than a year ago that we shifted to a 30-year term on our consumer loan. And that was done to combat the effects of the higher interest rates that we were seeing. When you can spread the payment over those extra 5 or 10 years, a lot of competitors are offering a max of 20 or 25 years. That makes a huge difference. It's giving the homeowner a payment that's going to be equal or lesser than their utility expense in most cases. And that, as we all know, is really one of the biggest selling points. If you're able to offer that to the consumer, they're going to be more apt to adopt solar.
What else differentiates home solar loan offerings on the solar installer side of things? How could one bank or fintech's options, help my business?
What is important to understand, and I feel like it's our competitive advantage, and that becomes our installer partners' competitive advantage. OneEthos is it's a lending platform, and it's powered by a bank. And what I mean by that is, Climate First Bank is not a vendor. It's not a relationship that we're at risk of losing. OneEthos and Climate First Bank are together. They're both under the same holding company. We're affiliates of one another, and we were built with the intention of feeding off of each other. So there's this symbiotic relationship between those two companies. And what that means to an installer is our demand isn't going to slow. We have a bank that is one of the fastest growing banks in the country since 2009. They're continuing to build their loan portfolio, and one of the ways they're doing it is through offering these consumer solar loans that OneEthos facilitates, along with the fact that we have that 30-year product. it's a competitive interest rate and no dealer fees, we feel like that really gives the installer an advantage. They can have a very honest conversation with the customer. The cash price is going to be the same as the financed price. Doesn't lead to any of those awkward conversations where they have to explain around a 35% dealer fee or whatever. But also we know that the product isn't enough. The process is really important. It has to be fast, has to be efficient for the installers. And we do offer that. So it takes about 3 minutes to fill out the app, 30-second credit decision. And that can be done online 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And the installers do get pipeline management tools and pricing tools so that they can keep track of their deals and so that they can price accurately when they're selling to a customer.
How does an installer work with OneEthos powered by Climate First Bank then? What is that approval process like?
Our approval process is online. If they go to oneethos.com, there's a for installers link that they can click on there. They can put in their information, and then we go through a fairly fast approval process. Usually takes anywhere from 3 to 5 business days to get fully approved and onboarded as an installer. We're looking at time in business. We do some Better Business Bureau record checking, collect and verify insurance, probably very comparable to what they've experienced onboarding with other lending solutions.
On the system side, do you have like an approved vendor list? Is there specific brands in your AVL, or is the market kind of like open up to me as an installer?
Market is open, so we don't restrict on the equipment that's being used. I mean, we pay attention to what's going on in the industry, and we spot check from time to time. If we start to see that there's any concerns with a specific brand, we would flag that and we would let our installers know. But today we do not have any restrictions.
And then what about on the homeowner side? What are maybe details we all scroll past when signing that fine print that maybe make the difference when going with a OneEthos loan?
This is one of the principles of what we do at OneEthos. We don't want to do fine print. We want to make this process. We want big bold letters. We want it to be as informative as possible. That's our brand. Our brand is ethical solar finance, and we think that makes the installers look good. It gives them something that they can stand behind, and it makes them look better in the market that they can offer that, and that they're being backed by us. As I mentioned earlier, we have no dealer fees. We don't require that the customer applies the tax credit to their loan. If they want to, they can, and if they do that, we will recast the loan payment over the remaining term, so it'll lower their monthly payment. I'd say, there's a percentage of our homeowners who do choose to do that, and then there's many others who choose to take that tax credit and use it for other things, sometimes paying off higher interest credit card debt.
Tax credits are obviously a big incentive driving, the solar installations. But in my view, it doesn't open up the market enough for lower or moderate income homeowners in any way, because they don't have the tax liability, right? So are there any creative ways that Climate First Bank can close the income gap with what you're offering?
We're trying to work on ways to do this all the time. One of the things that we've done is we bumped our debt to income ratio requirement up a little bit to make it more accommodating for homeowners of a wider income range. So we have a 50% debt to income threshold now, which is somewhat higher than some of the other players in the market, especially the ones that are backed by banks. The other thing that we see, though, is, to your point, a lot of low to moderate income homeowners, they can't monetize the tax credit because they don't have the tax liability. And that's where you see sometimes the third-party ownership models or community solar models coming into play. But we have a big wave of opportunity happening. It's starting now, and it's going to be for the next 5 to 6 years, which is the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund. 3 big grant programs totaling $27 billion that's been awarded all across the country to different community lenders and state green bank authorities. That is something that we see as a huge opportunity. We have entered into just recently a really cool program in the Metro DC area. We partnered with a nonprofit green bank called Montgomery County Green Bank in that market, and they're subsidizing the interest rates on our loans. If we do a loan to a low to moderate income census tract in their market, it's actually what's called an equity emphasis zone in their market. They're going to buy that rate down from our 7.99% APR down to a 0% APR for the first 10 years. That's one example. There are countless, green bank partners across the country. We're currently working with people all over the Midwest, a few on the West Coast, kind of some in the mountain region, on programs just like that. And when we do that, our installers who are already onboarded with us, they get priority. So that's why I always tell people, if we're in 27 states today, we're going to be in all 50 by the end of this year with our consumer platform. go ahead and get signed up now, start onboarding with us, because then you get first dibs at some of these programs we're going to have that are going to just make solar a no-brainer for low to moderate income.
So beyond all of that, I do love the business model you're pursuing with the B Corp, and all, it also being net zero from day one, kind of putting your money where your mouth is. I'm not sure if that was a pun or not, but before we go, can you explain how you accomplished that and any plans you have for the future for your own kind of emissions reductions or renewable energy goals?
It can be tricky. We're with our company, we do have some branches, and brick and mortar is it's carbon intensive. At the same time, we have one of our branches is LEED Platinum certified. The other one is being renovated to a LEED Platinum certification. Our Winter Park, Florida office is just awesome. It has a solar wall outside that you can see. We focus on measuring today and reporting on our scope 1 and 2 carbon emissions. We also publish an annual impact report for the company. And we do that to really show that we're being authentic to our mission. One of the things in that report is we cover how we're complying with, you mentioned B Corp. So how are we complying with our B Corp certification? What is our score? And what are the things that we can do better? We try to do better every year. The scope 3 emissions is something we'll eventually report on. It's really hard to do. It takes, especially in banking where you're doing loans for customers and have to think about the carbon impact of the things those loans finance, but it is something we're working toward. But then we have over 80 employees all over the country working remotely, like me, with the guitars in my home office background here. And so we're consuming carbon at home. Well, what can the bank do to help us with that? They do a few things. One, they incentivize us to go solar with 0% loans for solar for employees, 0% loans for electric vehicles for employees. They'll help with the cost of installing electric vehicle charging. And then we do have a carbon impact survey that we have to fill out every year to show what our carbon impact is at home. And we buy offsets for that. One thing that's really cool that we're seeing is, along with that, we have this mission specialist program where our employees earn points. It kind of helps them towards their annual goals based on their activities at home. So doing things like composting, recycling. And what we're finding is that has this really cool side effect that they're actually reducing their carbon output organically. So they're doing things that are actually reducing their consumption at home. They're thinking about, maybe I'll turn the lights off in that other room when I'm not there, or maybe I'll install LED lighting because I read this book through the Mission Specialist program that told me that was a good idea and it makes a difference. And as our employee count has grown in the last couple of years, we've actually seen our carbon output as a company decrease. And I think a lot of that is attributed to the fact that people are doing these things to be more sustainable in their daily lives.
All that stuff is just great. And I love that in this conversation that was, about financing and rates and those things, and how, because installing solar is often, that's what they can, come down to, that we're reminded that, a big part of this is supposed to also be about the environment and renewable energy. And then so tying in this extra emphasis on sustainability and tying that into what you're doing and promoting it to the customer. And I'm wondering, is that something that resonates? Have you heard from installers that when they're at the kitchen table talking about their financing options, like mentioning this and having it maybe make an impact, make a difference in a sale?
People think it's kind of cool when they find out there's this bank called Climate First Bank that, the installer is, of course, using the OneEthos application, but when they send the apply link to the customer, that link says Climate First Bank, OneEthos. It shows the partnership, and they start to ask questions and really want to understand, well, what is that? Is that a real bank? Yeah, it's an actual bank that's dedicated to this. And how cool is it that we're in an industry where you can do both? We're not talking about sacrificing profit for this mission. We're saying that you can achieve a very positive environmental impact, and you can make a bunch of money at the same time. I mean, that's what I think is awesome about being in this industry. And when I talk to installers, everybody has their own reasons for doing things, but it's kind of a cool side effect.
That's a good note to end on. I want to thank you for stopping by to make the pitch today.
Thanks, Chris. Had a good time. It was good to talk with you.